Managers laughed at the poor intern, but he pointed out a flaw that made the company headline news. Michael Johnson felt sweat trickling down his forehead as he clutched the folder of documents with trembling hands. The three managers of Harvest Hope Food Industries burst into laughter when he entered the meeting room in his faded dress shirt and shoes that had seen better days. "Look who's here," said the administrative manager, Richard Thompson, pointing at Michael's feet. "Those shoes are crying for help, kid." The sales manager, Susan Miller, covered her mouth to hide her laughter. At least he tried to dress up. Look at that borrowed tie. The financial manager, William Parker, slapped the table in amusement. "That's right, folks. Now the company's hiring just about anyone. Where'd you get that shirt, son? The midnight flea market?" Michael took a deep breath, trying to control the shame burning in his chest. He needed that internship at the most important food company in Riverdale, Pennsylvania. His mother, Catherine, worked as a maid in 3 different homes just to pay rent for their tiny apartment. His younger siblings depended on him for a shot at a better future. "Sorry I'm late," Michael murmured, stepping toward the meeting table. "I brought the reports you asked for on last quarter's sales." William adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and smirked. "Oh, great. The spreadsheet boy is here. Hope you got the numbers right, because math isn't for everyone. Especially not for public school kids," Richard added, sparking another round of laughter. Michael set the folder on the table and began organizing the papers. For 2 weeks, he'd spent hours in the dusty little office of the records department, reviewing every document, every invoice, every sales report from the last 6 months. What he'd discovered had kept him awake for nights. "Well, as you can see in the charts," Michael began, his voice still shaky, "sales of our main product, Keystone Delight cookies, dropped 40% in the last 3 months. Susan rolled her eyes. "Everyone knows that, genius. We didn't need an intern to state the obvious. But here's the issue," Michael continued, pointing to a spreadsheet. "According to production reports, the factory is still making the same number of cookies, and according to purchasing reports, we're still buying the same amount of ingredients." William stopped laughing and looked more closely at the papers. "So, what's your point?" Michael's heart raced. It was now or never. "That means we're producing cookies that aren't being sold, or we're selling to someone who isn't paying, or what?" Richard asked, no longer smiling. "Or someone's diverting the products. The numbers don't add up. It's impossible to produce this much and sell so little without something being wrong." The silence that followed was different, no longer the silence of disdain, but of discomfort. Susan exchanged glances with William, who cleared his throat nervously. "Listen here, kid." William stood up, his voice now sharp. "You think you understand business just because you can add and subtract. This company's been around for 20 years. We know what we're doing. But the numbers are for people who know what they're talking about," Susan interrupted. "You're just an intern. Your job is to file papers and make coffee, not to meddle in grown-up business." Michael felt tears stinging his eyes, but forced himself to continue. "I just want to help the company. If something's wrong, we can fix it before it becomes a bigger problem." Richard scoffed. "A bigger problem? The only problematic thing here is a know-it-all intern who doesn't know his place." "Listen, kid." William stepped closer to Michael, intimidating. "You live in a modest little house with your cleaning lady mother, study at a third-rate public college, and come here trying to teach the priest how to say Mass. Do you know how much combined experience the 3 of us have? Over 60 years. And you, with your 20 years of life, want to lecture us? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now back to it." William's words stung more than any slap. Michael lowered his head, gathered his papers with trembling hands, and left the room without another word. In the hallway, he heard the laughter resume behind the closed door. Ruth Wilson, the 60-year-old secretary who had worked at the company since its founding, was at her desk when Michael passed by. She saw the young man's flushed face and the way he clutched the papers to his chest. "Michael," she called softly, "come here for a minute." The young man approached Ruth's desk, trying to hide that he was on the verge of tears. "What happened in there?" she asked kindly. "Nothing, Miss Ruth. I just presented some numbers, and they didn't like them much." The secretary motioned for him to come closer. Those numbers you were analyzing, were they about sales and production? Michael nodded. Ruth glanced around to make sure no one was listening. Son, I've worked here for 20 years. I've seen a lot. If you found something odd in those numbers, you'd better keep those papers safe. Why? Because not everything that glitters is gold, and there's a lot in this company that isn't what it seems. Before Michael could ask anything else, William stepped out of the meeting room and shouted from across the hallway, "Wilson, get over here, I need to talk to you." Ruth sighed and stood up. "Keep those papers safe, boy. And don't give up. Sometimes the truth takes time to come out, but it always does." Michael returned to his desk in the corner of the records department, a tiny, windowless space stacked with boxes of old documents. He opened the drawer and carefully tucked his notes beneath other papers. At 6 in the evening, when the workday ended, Michael waited for everyone to leave before catching the bus that would take him home. The ride lasted nearly an hour, passing through the simpler neighborhoods of Riverdale until it reached Grace Gardens housing project, where he lived with his family. Catherine was in the kitchen making dinner when Michael arrived. She had just gotten back from the last house she cleaned and was still wearing her maid's uniform. "How was your day, son?" she asked, stirring the beans in the pot. Michael sat at the small kitchen table and told his mother what had happened. Catherine stopped stirring and turned to him. "Son, are you sure the numbers are wrong?" "I am, Mom. I checked them several times." "Something's not right." Catherine dried her hands on her apron and sat beside him. "Michael, I've worked for many wealthy people in my life. I've learned that when someone laughs at you for trying to do the right thing, it's usually because they have something to hide. But they're the managers, Mom. They know more than I do." Knowing a lot and being honest are two different things. Catherine held her son's hand. "If you believe you've found something wrong, don't give up. Your father always said the truth is like a seed. It takes time to sprout, but when it does, it grows strong." Michael felt a pang in his chest remembering his father, who had passed when he was still a child. Jack Johnson had been a bricklayer his whole life, a simple man who always taught his children the importance of honesty. "Mom, what if I lose the internship? We need the money." "We've always needed money, son, but we've never had to bow our heads to dishonesty. If you lose this internship by doing the right thing, God will arrange something better." The next morning, Michael arrived at the company determined to investigate further. He spent the entire day in the archives, organizing documents by date and cross-referencing information. The more he analyzed, the more certain he became that something was very wrong. The documents showed the company received payments from distributors that, according to sales records, didn't exist. There were invoices for products leaving the factory that never appeared in official sales reports. And the strangest part, some shipments were sent to addresses that, when Michael searched on Search Finder, didn't exist. Around 5 in the afternoon, when almost everyone had already left, Michael decided to look for Ruth. She was organizing some papers at her desk. "Mrs. Wilson, can I talk to you?" "Of course, dear. What is it?" Michael showed her some of the inconsistencies he had found. Ruth's eyes widened as he explained. "Michael," she said quietly, "you need to keep all this very safe. And you need more evidence. Do you know something?" Ruth glanced around again. "I know those 3 managers arrived 5 years ago, right after Dr. Anthony, the original owner, got sick and handed the management over to them. And I know that for the past 3 years, things have changed a lot around here." "Changed how?" "Dr. Anthony was always a very honest man. He founded this company to provide jobs for the people in town. But after he fell ill and the managers took over, well, a lot of good things changed." Michael felt he was on the right track. "Do you think Dr. Anthony could help me?" "He's in a rest home. His family lives in Philadelphia, but there's someone who might help you." Ruth wrote a name and number on a piece of paper. "Mrs. Gardner, Dr. Anthony's daughter. She comes here from time to time to visit her father and check on the company. She's a very good and very sharp woman." Michael tucked the paper into his pocket. "Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Just be careful, son. Dishonest people don't like being found out." On Friday morning, Michael arrived at the company earlier than usual. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that the managers always came in late on Fridays to investigate some documents in the main office. While he was in the main archive, he heard voices coming from the meeting room. William, Susan, and Richard had arrived early and were talking. The door was slightly ajar, and Michael caught part of the conversation. "That kid is poking around where he shouldn't," William's voice said. "Relax," Richard replied. "He's just an intern. No one will believe him." "But what if he takes this story to someone outside?" Susan sounded worried. "Who's going to believe a poor kid against 3 experienced managers?" William laughed. "Besides, we can always say he tried to steal company documents." Michael felt his blood run cold. They knew he was investigating and were plotting against him. "Either way," Richard continued, "I think we should speed up the operation. Another 6 months, and we'll have enough money to close the deal in Canada." "True," Susan agreed. "And when the company officially goes under, no one will suspect a thing. It'll just look like bad management." Michael couldn't hear anything else because someone was coming down the hallway. He quickly returned to his desk, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might leap out of his chest. Now he was certain. The 3 managers were stealing from the company and planning its downfall. They were diverting products to sell under the table and keeping the money for themselves. And the worst part? They knew he was investigating. During lunch, Michael called the number Ruth had given him. A woman's voice answered. "Margaret Gardner." "Mrs. Gardner, my name is Michael Johnson. I'm an intern at your father's company. Mrs. Wilson gave me your number." "Oh, Ruth, how is she? And how's the company?" "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. I found some irregularities in the company's documents." There was a pause. "What kind of irregularities?" Michael briefly explained what he'd discovered. Margaret was silent for a few seconds. "Michael, can you meet me this Saturday? I'll be in Riverdale visiting my father and would like to see those documents." "Of course, Mrs. Gardner, where?" "At the town square at 2 in the afternoon. How will I recognize you?" "I'll be carrying a brown folder and wearing a blue checkered shirt." "All right. And Michael, be very careful. If what you're saying is true, this could be dangerous." On Saturday, Michael arrived at the square 15 minutes early. Margaret Gardner was a woman in her 50s, elegant but understated. She greeted Michael warmly and they sat on a bench in the square. "Can you show me the documents?" Michael opened the folder and began explaining, document by document, all the irregularities he'd found. Margaret examined each paper with growing concern. "My God," she murmured after a while. "This is much worse than I imagined. Did you suspect anything? A few months ago, I noticed the transfers to my father's account had gotten smaller. The managers always said it was because the company was struggling, but seeing this..." She shook her head. "They're stealing from my father and destroying his life's work." "What can we do?" Margaret thought for a few minutes. "First, you'll keep working as usual, like nothing happened. I'll hire an independent accountant to conduct a full audit of the company, but that'll take a few weeks." "What if they find out I spoke to you?" "That's why you must be very careful. Don't change your behavior. Don't ask too many questions. Don't let on that you know anything." Michael nodded, but his stomach turned. "One last thing," Margaret added. "If anything happens, if you feel threatened, call me immediately. And keep copies of all these documents in a safe place. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. On Monday, Michael returned to work, trying to act normal. But he quickly noticed something had changed. The 3 managers greeted him with forced smiles and made jokes that seemed to carry double meanings. "Look who it is, our little detective," William said as Michael passed the reception desk. "That's right," Susan agreed. "Always digging through papers, always so interested in the company's business." Richard laughed. "Be careful not to get into trouble, kid. Curiosity can be dangerous sometimes." Michael pretended not to understand the hints and went about his work. But all week he felt like he was being watched. Whenever he went to the archives, someone would walk by. When he organized documents, someone would ask what he was doing. On Thursday, William called Michael into his office for a private talk. "Have a seat, kid," he said, pointing to a chair across from his desk. How long have you been working here? Almost 2 months, sir. And how are you finding the experience? Very good. I'm learning a lot about business administration. William leaned forward. Look, Michael, I like you. You're a hard-working young man, came from a humble family, and are striving to better yourself. That's admirable. Thank you, sir. That's why I'm going to give you some friendly advice. Sometimes in life we come across information that can confuse us, especially when we don't have enough experience to understand the bigger picture. Michael felt his stomach tighten. What do you mean, sir? Well, for example, someone might look at some numbers and think they've found something irregular. But if that person doesn't understand how the market works, how special contracts function, consignment sales, more complex operations, they might draw the wrong conclusions. I see. And you know what's worse? If that person goes around spreading those wrong conclusions, they could harm the company and themselves. They might even be accused of defamation, of leaking confidential information. William let the words hang in the air for a few seconds. Do you understand me, Michael? Yes, sir, I understand perfectly. Good. Then you can get back to work. And remember, if you have any questions about any documents, you can come talk to me. No need to imagine things or bother others with your doubts. Michael left the room feeling his legs go weak. The threat had been clear, even disguised as friendly advice. That night, he told Catherine everything. His mother listened in silence, her face growing more worried by the minute. Son, this is getting dangerous. Maybe you should just let it go. But Mom, they're stealing. And if I don't do anything, they'll keep stealing until the company goes under and everyone loses their jobs. And what if they hurt you? What if they make up something against you? Michael thought about his mother's words. She had every reason to worry. They were 3 important people against 1 poor intern. Who would believe him if they fabricated some accusation? But then he remembered Ruth's words about Dr. Anthony, how he had built the company to provide jobs for the town's people. He remembered the employees who depended on those jobs to support their families. He remembered his own family, who also relied on honest businesses for opportunities. Mom, Dad always said we have to do what's right even when it's hard. Catherine sighed. Your father did say that, but he also said to be smart about it. Then I'll be smart. I'll keep gathering the evidence and wait for Mrs. Margaret to finish the audit. On Friday, Michael arrived at work to find his desk ransacked. All the documents he had organized were out of place, and several folders had been opened. Ruth approached when she saw the worry on his face. What happened here? She asked. Someone went through my things. Son, they were here last night. I was leaving when I saw the lights on in your section. Michael felt a chill. They were looking for the documents he had copied. Luckily, he had taken all the copies home and hidden them in his bedroom drawer. That morning, William showed up in the records room with an unfriendly expression. Michael, I need to talk to you. Now. In his office, William got straight to the point. An important company document is missing, a supplier contract. Have you seen anything? No, sir. What kind of document? Don't play dumb with me, boy. I know you've been snooping where you shouldn't. If you took any company documents home, you'd better return them now. Otherwise, you're in serious trouble. I didn't take anything, sir. You can search my bag if you want. William stared at him for a long moment. Fine. But consider this a warning. If we find out you took any company documents, you'll be accused of theft, and no amount of crying to your mother will fix that. Michael left the room with trembling hands. They were closing in on him. He called Margaret as soon as he got home. Mrs. Gardner, they're getting suspicious. They went through my desk and are accusing me of stealing documents. Calm down, Michael. The accountant I hired is already working on it. 1 more week and we'll have the audit results. What if they fire me before then? If they fire you without cause, it'll only confirm our suspicions. Just hang in there a few more days. Over the weekend, Michael barely slept. He kept imagining what might happen on Monday. Catherine noticed her son's distress and tried to cheer him up as best she could. Son, your father always said God protects those who do what's right, and you're doing the right thing. On Monday, Michael arrived at the company with a knot in his stomach. To his surprise, the three managers were at the reception whispering with Ruth. When they saw Michael, they stopped talking. "Good morning," Michael greeted, trying to sound normal. "Good morning, Michael," Susan replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Glad you're here. We have some news for you." "News?" "Yes." William stepped forward. "We talked and decided to offer you a promotion. How about working at our warehouse in Gettysburg? It's a better position with higher pay." Michael sensed a trap. Gettysburg was over 60 miles from Riverdale. They wanted him away from the company. "It's a great offer," Richard added. "You'd start next week." "I need to think. My family is here in Riverdale." "Of course," Susan said. "But don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't come every day." Michael spent the morning pretending to work, but thinking about what to do. He called Margaret during lunch. "They want to transfer me to Gettysburg. It's obvious they want me out of here." "Michael, it's fine. The audit is almost done. Tomorrow afternoon I'll have the final results. Accept the transfer for now. Tell them you need a few days to get things in order." "Are you sure?" "I am. Trust me." On Tuesday, Michael told the managers he accepted the transfer but needed a week to prepare. They agreed, clearly relieved. "Great decision, kid," William said. "You'll see how good it is to work away from here." Margaret called Michael late that afternoon. "Michael, we have everything. The accountant found irregularities totaling over $2 million. Diverted products, fake invoices, ghost accounts. It's a very well-organized scheme." "What now?" "Now we go to the company tomorrow. Me, you, the accountant, and a lawyer I hired. We'll confront those three and demand answers. Won't they just deny everything?" "They can try, but we have too much proof. And besides, we'll give them a choice. Repay the money and leave the company, or face a lawsuit." On Wednesday morning, Michael arrived at the company knowing it would be a different kind of day. At 10 o'clock, Margaret showed up with a man in a suit and a woman carrying a folder full of documents. "Good morning," Margaret said to Ruth. "I'm Margaret Gardner, Dr. Anthony's daughter. I'd like to speak with the three managers." Ruth smiled for the first time in weeks. "Of course, Mrs. Gardner. They're in the meeting room." Margaret entered the room, followed by the lawyer and the accountant. Michael stayed at the reception, his heart pounding. After a few minutes, raised voices came from the room. William was shouting, Susan was speaking loudly, and Richard was trying to interrupt. The door swung open, and William stormed out, his face red. "This is a sham," he yelled. "You can't prove anything." "Oh, we can." Margaret's calm voice came from inside the room. "We have all the proof. Fake invoices, transfers to personal accounts, unrecorded sales, everything's documented." Susan appeared at the door, clearly nervous. "Margaret, you don't understand how the market works. Some operations are complex." "Don't give me that," Margaret interrupted. "You stole $2.5 million from my father's company." Richard tried one last move. "And who's going to believe you? Your word against ours." That's when the lawyer spoke up. "Mr. Thompson, we have bank records, phone recordings, and documents signed by you. And we have a witness who documented everything." All heads turned to Michael, who stood in the reception area. William glared at him with hatred. You little traitor. After everything we did for you." "You did nothing for me," Michael replied, finding courage he didn't know he had. "You spent weeks humiliating me, laughing at my poverty, and trying to intimidate me, all because I found out you're thieves." "Thieves." William lunged toward Michael, but the lawyer grabbed his arm. "Mr. Parker, I suggest you calm down. Any threats or aggression will only make your situation worse." Margaret left the room with the documents in hand. "You have two options. First, fully repay the stolen amount, leave the company, and sign an agreement to avoid criminal charges. Second, face prosecution for embezzlement, document forgery, and conspiracy." The three managers exchanged glances. Susan began to cry. Richard ran a hand over his face in despair. William tried to maintain his authoritative stance, but his voice trembled as he spoke. We need time to think." "You have until the end of the day," said the lawyer. "After that, we file with the district attorney's office." The three left the company without another word. Margaret approached Michael and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you, Michael. Without your courage, they would have kept stealing until the company went under." Ruth stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Son, I knew you were special from day one. Your father would be so proud." That afternoon, the manager's lawyer called Margaret. They accepted the first option. They would repay the stolen money and leave the company. "How will they come up with $2.5 million?" Michael asked. "They bought apartments and cars with the stolen money," Margaret explained. "They'll have to sell everything. And even then, it'll take months to settle the full debt." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. A week later, Margaret called Michael for a private talk. "Michael, I want to offer you a permanent job at the company. Not as an intern, but as an administrative assistant, with full salary and room for growth." "Really?" "My father always said a company is only as good as the people who work there, and you've proven you're exactly the kind of person he'd want here." Michael felt his eyes fill with tears. "Mrs. Gardner, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to. You saved the company. If anything, I should be thanking you." "And the company will be okay?" "Yes. With the money they'll return and honest management, Harvest Hope Food Industries will grow again, and you'll be part of that recovery." That night, Michael came home with news that made Catherine cry with joy. "My boy, I always knew you were special. Your honesty opened this door. Mum, now I can help more at home, and my siblings can go to private school." "The most important thing," Catherine cupped her son's face in her hands, "is that you did the right thing. Even when it was hard, even when you were scared, you did the right thing." 6 months later, Harvest Hope Food Industries was running better than ever. Margaret had taken over general management and hired new, honest and competent managers. Michael had been promoted to financial supervisor and was studying business administration at a private college with a scholarship offered by the company itself. Ruth continued in the office, now as an assistant to the board, and always made sure to tell new employees the story of the brave intern who saved the company. When Dr. Anthony heard the story, he insisted on meeting Michael in person. Even weakened by age, he held the young man's hands and said, "My son, you have the soul of a true entrepreneur, not the kind who only thinks about money, but the kind who understands that a company exists to serve the community." "Thank you, Dr. Anthony. You were my inspiration." "The inspiration was inside you. I just created the company. You saved it." Michael had learned that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. His story spread throughout the town of Riverdale, and he became an example for other young people facing hardships. But what mattered most to Michael was knowing his family was safe, that hundreds of employees still had their jobs, and that Dr. Anthony's company would continue serving the community for many years. 2 years later, Michael had finished college and been promoted to financial manager. The company was thriving, producing not just cookies but also other foods that brought flavor and quality to all of Pennsylvania. Margaret had moved permanently to Riverdale to care for her father and manage the company. She and Michael developed a working partnership based on mutual trust and respect. "Michael," she said one morning, "I want to propose a challenge to you." "What kind of challenge?" "How about opening a branch of the company in Philadelphia? And how about you being in charge of this expansion?" Michael felt his heart race. It was an opportunity bigger than he had ever dreamed of. "Miss Margaret, I don't know if I'm ready for so much responsibility." "Michael, you've already proven you're ready for anything. When you had the courage to stand up to 3 corrupt managers as just an intern, you showed you have what it takes to be a leader." "And my family?" "Your family can move with you. The company will help with all the costs, and your siblings will be able to attend the best schools in Philadelphia." Michael thought about the offer for a few days. He talked to Catherine, who encouraged him to accept. "Son, you've already done so much for us here. Now it's time to aim higher." "But what about you? I don't want to leave you alone." "I won't be alone. I'll go with you. Philadelphia has plenty of good family homes that need an experienced housekeeper." Michael laughed. "Mom, you won't need to work as a housekeeper. With my new salary, I can support everyone." "Son, work is never a disgrace, but it's good to know I have that option." The move to Philadelphia was a success. Michael managed to establish the company branch in less than a year, creating 200 new jobs and bringing Harvest Hope Food Industries products to a much larger market. Catherine found work at a community daycare, caring for underprivileged children. She said it was the most rewarding job she'd ever had. Michael's siblings, Chris and Faith, were studying at good schools and dreaming of college. Chris wanted to be an engineer, and Faith dreamed of becoming a teacher. One Saturday afternoon, Michael was at the branch office when he got a call from Ruth. "Michael, you need to see today's paper. There's an article about the company." Michael bought the newspaper and was moved when he read the headline. "Pennsylvania Company becomes model of ethics and social responsibility." The article told the whole story of Harvest Hope Food Industries' recovery, from the discovery of irregularities to its current growth. The journalist had interviewed several employees, all praising the honest work environment and opportunities for advancement. At the end of the article, there was a statement from Margaret. All of this was only possible because a young intern had the courage to do what was right, even when it was easier to stay silent. Michael Johnson taught us that honesty isn't just a moral value, but the foundation of any healthy business. Michael cut out the article and sent it via Chat Connect to Catherine, who replied with a photo of her smiling and a message. "My son, your father is watching this from heaven and is proud." 3 years after uncovering the corruption scheme, Michael was at an awards ceremony in Philadelphia. Harvest Hope Food Industries had been chosen as Company of the Year by the Pennsylvania Manufacturing Association. Margaret made sure Michael joined her on stage to accept the award. "This award belongs to every employee at our company," she said into the microphone, "but especially to one young man who taught us that doing the right thing is always the best business. Michael Johnson, our regional manager." Michael stepped up to the microphone, nervous. In the audience, he saw Catherine, Chris, and Faith cheering proudly. "5 years ago," he began, "I was just a poor intern who discovered wrongdoing and didn't know whether to speak up or stay silent. Today, I understand that moment defined not just my future, but the future of hundreds of families who depend on our company to live with dignity." The audience applauded. "I've learned that no matter where you come from, no matter how many obstacles you face, if you have the courage to do what's right, opportunities will come. And most importantly, you'll sleep peacefully knowing you did your part to make the world a better place." After the event, the family went to dinner at a restaurant in downtown Philadelphia. Chris, now 17, was in his junior year of high school and had passed his college entrance exams for civil engineering. "Bro," he said to Michael, "I want to be like you when I grow up." "What do you mean?" "I want to have the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard." Faith, now 15, was a freshman in high school and still dreamed of becoming a teacher. "Michael," she said, "do you think I could work at the company one day too?" "Of course. But not because you're my sister, because you'll study, prepare, and earn the opportunity." Catherine watched her children talking with a calm smile on her face. At 55, she had finally escaped a life of hardship and seen her children secure their futures. "You know what I admire most about you, Michael," she said. "What, Mom?" "You never forgot where you came from. Even with all your success, you're still the same humble boy I raised. That's because you taught me that success doesn't change character. Success only reveals who we truly are." That night, Michael stood on the balcony of the apartment he'd bought for his family, gazing at the lights of Philadelphia. He thought about how much life had changed since that day in the meeting room when 3 managers laughed at his simple appearance. His phone rang. It was Margaret. "Michael, I have news for you." "What news?" "Dr. Anthony wants to see you tomorrow. He has a proposal." "A proposal?" "He wants to offer you a partnership in the company. You'd be a minority partner, with profit sharing and decision-making rights." Michael felt the world spin. "Mrs. Gardner, this is more than I ever dreamed." "Michael, my father always said that a company is like a family, and you've been part of our family for a long time." The next day, Michael went to Riverdale to speak with Dr. Anthony. The elderly man, now 82 years old, was physically frailer, but his mind remained sharp. "Michael, my boy," he said, holding the young man's hands, "I want to ask you something. What would you do if you owned a company?" Michael thought for a few seconds. "I'd create opportunities for people like me, people who are eager to work and grow but never had the same chances as others." "And how would you do that?" "Internship programs for underprivileged youth, partnerships with public schools, training courses for employees, support for struggling families." Dr. Anthony smiled. That's exactly what I thought when I founded this company. And that's why I want you to be my partner. Not just an employee, but a true partner. Dr. Anthony, I don't have the money to buy shares in the company. Who said anything about buying? Your honesty, dedication, and vision have already paid for that share. You saved my company and my legacy. Now, I want you to help build its future. Michael signed the partnership papers with tears in his eyes. He became a 20% owner of Harvest Hope Food Industries, with the right to participate in all major company decisions. The first proposal he made was creating the Youth Hope program, which offered paid internships to students from public schools in Riverdale and the surrounding area. The program also included training courses and mentorship for young entrepreneurs. We want other young people to have the same opportunity I had, Michael explained to the journalists covering the program's launch. The Youth Hope program was an immediate success. Within 2 years, it had already benefited over 200 young people, many of whom secured jobs at the company or other local businesses. Michael also implemented a profit-sharing program for all employees, a comprehensive health plan, and a daycare center for workers' children. A company only truly prospers when all its employees prosper too, he often said in management meetings. Harvest Hope Food Industries became a national benchmark for social responsibility and ethical management. Business leaders from across the country came to learn about the programs created by Michael and Margaret. One December morning, 5 years after becoming a partner, Michael was in his office when he received an unexpected call. Michael Johnson. Yes, speaking. This is the Department of Social Development. We'd like to invite you to participate in a national poverty alleviation program. Your experience with social programs in private companies has caught the government's attention. Michael was honored by the invitation, but asked for a few days to think it over. He discussed it with Margaret and Dr. Anthony. Michael, Margaret said, this is a chance to multiply everything you've learned here. You could help other companies create programs like ours. But I don't want to leave the company. You don't have to. You could work as a part-time consultant. The company will support this project. Michael accepted the invitation and began dividing his time between the company and the government program. He traveled across America, teaching business owners how to develop effective social responsibility initiatives. In every speech, he shared his own story. The poor intern who had the courage to expose corruption and turned it into an opportunity for personal and social growth. America has millions of talented young people waiting for a chance, he often said. Our job as business leaders is to create those opportunities and shape the leaders of tomorrow. On one of these trips, Michael was in Salvador presenting the program to local business owners when he received a call from Catherine. Son, I have good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? The bad one, Mom. Dr. Anthony is in the hospital. His heart is very weak. Michael felt his world collapse. And the good news? He's asking for you to come back. He said he has something important to tell you. Michael cancelled all his commitments and took the first flight back to Riverdale. At the hospital, he found Margaret and Dr. Anthony's entire family gathered around the bed. Michael, the elderly man whispered when he saw him. You came? Of course I came, Doctor. How are you feeling? I'm at peace. My company is in good hands. My legacy is secure. Dr. Anthony held Michael's hand. My son, I want to ask you a favor. Anything, Doctor. When I'm gone, I want you to take care of Margaret and the company as if they were your own family. Promise me. I promise. And I want you to keep creating opportunities for young people like you once were. America needs more people like you. I promise that too. Dr. Anthony smiled and closed his eyes. Then I can go in peace. He passed away the next morning, sleeping peacefully, surrounded by his family and Michael. The funeral was a testament to the impact he had on the community. Hundreds of current and former employees, suppliers, clients, and townspeople came to say goodbye. Michael insisted on speaking at the wake. Dr. Anthony taught me that a company isn't just a business. It's an opportunity to change lives. He gave me a chance when I was just a poor intern. And that chance didn't just change my life. It changed my family's life and hundreds of others. After the funeral, Margaret called Michael for a talk. Michael, my father left a will. He increased your stake in the company to 40%. Now we're majority partners together. Michael was speechless. Margaret, I don't deserve this much. You deserve this and more. My father saw in you the son he always wanted, someone who truly understood the purpose of the company. So now, how do we move forward? The same way we always have, doing what's right, creating opportunities, and honoring my father's legacy. A year after Dr. Anthony's passing, Harvest Hope Food Industries opened its third branch, this time in New York City. Michael had become a national reference for ethical management and social responsibility. Catherine, now 58, had been promoted to coordinator at the daycare where she worked. Chris had graduated with an engineering degree and was working at a construction company in Philadelphia. Faith was in her last year of high school and had been accepted into a teaching program. One Friday afternoon, Michael was in his New York City office when he received an unexpected visit. It was a young black man, simply dressed, holding a folder of documents. Mr. Michael, my name is James Carter. I'm an intern at a cosmetics company here in New York City. I need your help. Michael looked at the young man and saw himself 10 years earlier. Come in, James. Tell me what's going on. James shared a story much like Michael's. He had uncovered irregularities at the company where he interned, but no one believed him. The managers humiliated him and threatened to fire him. I heard your story at a college lecture, James explained, and I thought maybe you could help me. Michael reviewed the documents James had brought. It was a complex tax evasion scheme that harmed both the government and the company's employees. James, do you have the courage to see this through? I do, sir. My family needs this job, but I can't pretend I didn't see anything. Michael smiled. Then let's move forward. I'll help you. In the following weeks, Michael guided James on how to document the irregularities, protect himself, and find the right authorities to report the scheme. The case made national headlines when the company was fined $5 million for tax evasion. James was promoted to administrative assistant and became an example for other young workers. Mr. Johnson, he said in a phone call, how can I repay everything you've done for me? By doing the same thing I'm doing. When you grow professionally, help other young people going through what you went through. It's a promise. Michael continued to handle similar cases. Young people from across the country sought his help to report wrongdoing in their workplaces. He built a network of lawyers and accountants willing to assist these young people free of charge. We're raising a generation of ethical workers, he said in an interview with a business magazine. People who won't tolerate corruption and have the courage to do what's right. 10 years after uncovering the corruption scheme at Harvest Hope Food Industries, Michael stood on stage at the country's largest entrepreneurship event, sharing his story with an audience of 3,000. When I was an intern, he said into the microphone, 3 managers laughed at me because of my simple clothes and humble background. They thought a poor boy couldn't understand serious business. The crowd was utterly silent. Today, 10 years later, I'm a partner in a company that earns $50 million a year. We've created over 1,000 direct jobs, and our social programs have helped more than 2,000 underprivileged youth. Applause echoed through the auditorium. But the most important thing isn't the numbers. The most important thing is proving that doing the right thing isn't just a moral issue. It's also the best business decision there is. At the end of the talk, a young woman approached the stage. She was a black woman with a modest appearance, holding a resume in her hands. Mr. Johnson, my name is Ashley. I'm studying business at a public university and looking for an internship opportunity. Would you have a spot for me? Michael smiled, remembering himself years ago. Ashley, come with me. Let's talk about your future. And so, the cycle repeated. One young person giving another a chance, building a fairer country. One company at a time, one young person at a time. Michael looked at Ashley and saw the future of America. A future where social background doesn't determine destiny, where honesty is valued, and where doing the right thing is always the best choice. The end. Now tell us, what did you think of this story of perseverance? Do you know any young person who faced workplace prejudice like Michael? How would you act in his place? Leave your comment and share your experiences, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other inspiring stories like this one.